Hi everyone, I hope all is well. I'm just gonna show you really quickly how we were able to position a client by creating a bunch of city pages, SEO city pages. I was just looking and randomly searched for a couple, and I see that here we're number two, here we're number two again, here we're number one. I'm gonna take a risk. Let's look for something else. Let's look Dixon, Ohio. So I'm gonna say where to buy crushed concrete in Dixon, Ohio, and I'll show you how we did this. And number one, that's great. That's a lot of people's dreams, right? Like position their company on Google, number one, number two, and being able to do this at a massive scale with a database of 100,000 cities, which definitely goes over the Webflow limit, and we may have to move this client onto WordPress or another service soon. But let me show you very briefly how we did this. It's a combination of course, a website here on Webflow, an Airtable database, which has a couple columns that are strategically created, and a couple statuses so that we can trigger an automation that goes onto Make, and Make triggers a chain of OpenAIs that eventually everything gets combined, pushed onto Airtable, pushed onto Webflow, and it gets published. So let's go step by step. First, we need an Airtable, and we need an Airtable with all the cities that you want to rank. This is a huge list, but even if you had a list of the 5,000, 10,000, this is still a pretty large scale that doing manually would take a lot of time. And here, as you may be able to see, we've been able to push a lot of pages per day. We're pushing around a page every 30 to 45 seconds. Really something that it's very difficult to do manually. Would definitely take many months. Okay, so we've created a couple columns here that are going to get filled in the CMS of Webflow. So if we go to the cities page, we see that we have custom fields that are going to get filled via Airtable and via Make. So we have, in this case, it's for a shop that does aggregate supply for construction. So you may be able to see here, let me zoom in. Of course, we have the state, the county, and the city for SEO purposes. And then we have different rich text blocks for the main products that this client is selling. All of these, each one of these, for example, fill dirt, gravel, each one of these is matched with a column here. So for fill dirt, we have one. Let me actually show you some that are, well, this is, for example, this is generated. So we have, of course, a meta description, but then we have all the content that goes for fill dirt, all the content that goes to gravel, all the content that goes for crushed concrete, and so on and so on. And there's even like a general city description that takes in some information about the city and makes it a little more personalized. Lastly, the slug, so that it can get pushed into Webflow, and we make sure that the slug is also somewhat compatible with the search key terms and the way that people search. So then we have, of course, a webhook. So when the state is generate description, then this gets triggered. It gets the record, it gets some information from the Airtable, and then it gets routed. And then it generates, we have an OpenAI call for fill dirt. So for what I'm trying to say is each one of these columns will have a specific OpenAI call. So fill dirt has its own call. Once it's created, it gets pushed here onto Airtable. Then gravel is going to have its own. Then the city is going to have its own, and so on, and so on, and so on. Even the meta description has its own, as you may see here. And there is a prompt that I'm happy to share if you reach out. Create the description for this with the city, and then we insert the variable. Once everything is generated, it gets pushed onto Airtable, it gets pushed onto Webflow, and ultimately it updates on Airtable saying this was successfully created. In the case that it's not successfully created, we have all of these break nodes, which basically are like error handlers, in which if there's something like a timeout, it gets put in an incomplete queue, so that then in an hour, as we've set it, but it could be in a different time span, in an hour, make automatically attempts to create that city page again. And as you can see here, I'm going to show you again, we have 4,147 items. They were all made by AI, not a single human hand. Let me show you how this looks like. So we're going to go into the pages, we're going to go into the cities template, and well, actually, I can actually show you from here. So this is Fountain, Illinois, that I just decided to use. There's a little map, very pretty. Then there's information about the products, and then all of this information that AI generated. All of this is helping bulk aggregate supply rank. And as you just saw a couple minutes ago, this last one in Dixon, Ohio, I didn't know if we were placed or not. I just took the risk, and we're number one. And look at the SEO description. Looking for high quality construction materials in Dixon, Ohio. So very local, very specific. We have a wide range of blah, blah, blah. Crushed concrete, which is exactly what I searched for. This is a very simple example of what can be done without any code whatsoever. Just a couple prompts, little bit of make integration, and an Airtable to have all the information and columns and spaces for AI to grab some info, generate the content, push it back in Airtable, and once everything is filled, once the Airtable is filled, then Webflow will take all that information, as you can see here, and we create, okay, these are the fields, these are the variables, they get pushed, it gets published, and as soon as Google crawls the site, the site starts indexing, and as you can see, well, the ones that I was just looking at were generated like January 9th, January 8th, January 9th, and now it's the 22nd. So in a couple of days, we were able to rank pretty high up for more or less 4,000 cities. If you want to learn more in detail of the prompts or any other details, feel free to reach out. I'll give you some information in the description where to reach out. But I think I've given you quite a macro view of how this works. Nothing too complex. It's just putting the things and the steps in the right order, putting the prompts and tweaking them so that the results are good. And just start ranking. I hope this was informative. As I said, feel free to reach out if you have any more questions, or if you want any details, or if you want me to implement this for you. I hope this at least opens a couple eyes on what can be done without even having to code a single line. I'll see you on the next video.